All right, beautiful humans, welcome back to another episode of Naked Sunday. I am your host, Caleb Nelson, and Tyson just like smushed his face into his little cushion right next to me right now, so it's really cute. Sorry, I had to pause and just acknowledge that it's falling into sleep. Anyway, I don't know where I was going with that. Today's topic. Today's topic is grow together or grow apart. Now, this was insight from my time just coaching in the fitness industry. And it alludes back to this quote that I keep bringing up. All growth is spiritual growth. And this is the physical representation, manifestation, representation for me that made it all click. Now I see how everything is interconnected, and now I see how this part of relationships is so important. So in the fitness industry, there's a pretty nasty stigma of like, person joins the gym, person loses a bunch of weight, feeling good about themselves, looking better naked, person sleeps with trainer, other client, insert human being, whatever it is, person gets divorced, person goes on with their life. Now, I PC'd that one up a little bit for all of us today, which is an ironic twist on the whole notion of vulnerability and Naked Sunday. But I saw in many places how this became a thing. And this is also the reason why I choose to work with couples primarily. Because when you go on any transformational journey, it is important that you are aligning the people in your life to the same goal. Because if you're not going towards the same thing, you're going to grow apart. Where does that go? Well, let's take it for a ride. And this is not going to be a super long reflection today, but when you consider what is happening before somebody joins a gym, the weight gain or the feeling weak or whatever that is, whatever external cue is signaling somebody to go into that space. And again, we're using fitness. That is a symptom. That is not the actual problem. Many times with people I've worked with, it's been, I'm stressed out at work. I'm not feeling connected to my work. I feel like I'm just going through the rat race of life, and I don't feel like I'm doing anything meaningful with my day. They feel disconnected with their family at home. They don't feel present with their wife. They don't feel present with their kids. They're stressed out of their minds, just trying to pay the bills, run around to all the different events. Name your 1,000 different reasons why somebody is distracted, stressed out, and then goes and copes with their overwhelm, their frustration, their anxiety, their stress with food, alcohol, and lethargy, i.e. lack of exercise. Because that takes time, that takes space, it takes active pursuit of self-improvement, that takes energy, that takes connection. So if we think about that, at that moment, you could say that you and your partner, your spouse, are at the same place in life because you've agreed to still stay together. So if there was a scoreboard in the background, you're at the same, it's 0-0, might as well be. Could be the third quarter. We'll just call it that. It's called the third quarter of life, but it's tied at whatever. 10 apiece. If one partner decides enough is enough, I am going to change this. I'm going to take control of my body. I don't feel good. I feel tired. I feel like I'm dragging. I don't feel present. I just feel foggy brained. I'm making errors with work. I just feel gross. I don't want to go to the beach and take my shirt off. I don't feel comfortable in intimate situations with my spouse. I avoid activities I used to enjoy. My joints hurt. You name it. I don't like it anymore. Enough is enough. I'm taking this step. And they then go to we'll call it a trainer or a gym, whatever. I'm just thinking back on my own experiences here. They walk in the door and say, I'm ready to change my life. I'm ready to take control. I want to lose this 25, 30, 40, 50 pounds, whatever. In this moment now, we're 2 years, or like the 2-year point of the pandemic. The average weight gain, by the by, this is just a side note. It's, I think for millennials is like 45 pounds, something like that. I think for anybody older than that, it's even more. That's staggering. If that does not show that there's an indication of other stuff that's going on, that it was not productive, that was not aligned with where people were going, because there was something called chaos. There was a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of vague ambiguity, not knowing how to create clarity. These are all signs and symptoms, just at scale, guys. So think about that. Bringing it back down to this place. This is an individual feeling chaotic, feeling unbalanced, feeling distracted, feeling just blah, feeling flat, feeling stale, feeling unmotivated, uninspired, like a shell of themselves. They go, I'm going to sign up. Well, what starts to happen is you start losing the weight. It's not about losing the weight. What's happening is the behaviors, is the change in your mind, is the change in your perspective. As you gain more energy, as you peel back the layers, and you're like, oh, I can see through this cloud a little bit better today. You start to make different decisions. You start to become more aware of your surroundings. You start to become more aware not only of your own behaviors, but you also become more aware of other people in your life. You become more aware of their behaviors. You become more aware of their tendencies, their language, their communication patterns, their general habits, their general demeanor, their energy they put off, their mindset, their goals, their aspirations, or their lack thereof. And what happens is, if that one person continues to just go on this path of personal development and growth, because that, as we talked about before, all growth is spiritual growth. This is intrinsically, while it's changing an external variable, is intrinsically growing the human that's inside, because you're nourishing and nurturing that identity of what you want to be. Now, especially if the other person is not moving, it becomes very obvious. If anything, that lack of movement or momentum often feels like an anchor. It feels like you're just literally slamming on the brakes and not letting somebody go forward. You're trying to slam on the accelerator, the other person slam on the brakes at the same time. Not going to work out too well. I just had like a vision of like student driver cars where they got the brakes and the accelerator on both sides. It's like you're in the driver's seat and this other person is slamming on the brakes, because you do need to account for the fact that if you're married, you're probably sharing similar foods in the home. Well, if one person is bringing in Doritos and Oreos, not that they're bad, but like if that's your weakness and you crush a bag of Doritos every time you're stressed, or go through a sleeve of Oreos just because you're having a bad day, well, probably keeping it around is not the greatest thing until you've learned how to manage that, or created space so you can absorb the other stress and not lean on that. It's like saying somebody who is coming off of alcohol, like it's had an issue with alcohol, you probably don't want them to just like go spend more time in a bar, because the temptation's always there. These are the types of feelings, and it has nothing to do with the Doritos and the Oreos or the alcohol. It has to do with the behavior of the person of not helping change the environment, being supportive of the journey somebody's going on. It puts other stress into the play. And what that's also going to affect is the way you look at time together. People I work with, like, they have enough financial resources. Like, they're spending their money on things that don't really align the same way. So you can start thinking about, how are you spending your money? Are you spending on experiences? Are you spending on just like mind-numbing engagements? Or just spending it on stuff to fill a void? You start to become very aware of that. Some people have hoarding tendencies. It's not about the stuff. It's about feeling safe, in control. Well, that you become aware of that stuff when you are going on one change, because you see those other patterns of how you used to be replicated in other places in your world. Now, the further this goes along, and the threshold is relative to the person, the further this goes along without growth from the other person, from their partner, from their spouse, there creates this massive gap. And at a certain point, the gap is too big to overcome. That's where divorce happens. That's where that story, that really sad stigma stereotype of in the fitness industry, that's the surface level thing. But what was really happening on the inside is one person was going on a transformational journey, was ready to change some other fundamental things, and like wanted different things. The other person just didn't want to go along for the ride. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of other variables that can come into it. But the overarching concept, if we can start to take that and start to look at how we're going about our life, it's about who we're sharing the ride with. Anybody who's been listening for a while knows that I'm a big believer in you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and give your most attention to. Why? Because they are they're the reflections, the mirrors of the things that you allow, that you permit in your life, that you value. They're upholding those behaviors and standards. Those are the physical manifestations of that. It's in the behaviors, and also in how they go about the behaviors, because somebody could make $1 million robbing people versus the person who makes $1 million building an ethically grounded business. 2 very different people, because the mindset is very different. One also is usually very short-sighted in terms of losing a lot of relational capital and soulful relationships on the back end. The other one is thinking long-term about being a good human being along the journey. Anyway, bringing you back, these are the things you start to take into account. Who are the people you're spending your time with? Where are you spending your time? If you're wanting to get in shape, you spend more time at the gym as opposed to the bar or the wherever, the lounge, the club, a place that's going to nourish the values. Now, there was a secondary layer to this. So what I would always suggest to the clients when they started was join up with your significant other. We had a lot of couples in our spot. And that was something I was really proud of. And that's, again, where it leads to where I'm at in my life now and the work that I do. It was because at the end of the day, our goal at the facility, people didn't know it. Hell, for a long time, I didn't realize it. I wanted to really empower families and empower relationships. This happened to be a medium, a healthier medium by which people could engage. Think about the modern day church. This was the watering hole, the communal engagement. We were engaging around health, individual improvement. And if that's the cornerstone binding value within the space, well, all the other people in that space are going to continue to nurture that. Our spot was not some place where there was just a bunch of people cheating on each other and having rampant affairs. No, this was like the safe space. You could talk to somebody else's husband or wife without fear of like getting some like odd look, because all the couples were there together. They were all sharing the space together. It was the core values that were shared within the space. We could interact as humans, not fearing that your relationship was going to be trashed in the interim. That was our culture. So again, coming back to how you go about it. And it's not to say it's completely different. I'm just saying when you start looking to construct a life with a lifelong partner, how are you going to get there? And everybody needs to have their own individual outlets as well. You can't just do everything together. It's a healthy thing to have your own life and come back together and share those ideas. But when there's a seminal thing that both of you need to bind on, share that space together, because the leader of whatever that space is, those were my values. I shared my values. People knew where I stood. Was I a little silly? Like, did I like to laugh? Like, we wanted to have a good time, but we wanted to be responsible. We wanted to think long term. We were against we started pulling a lot of the crazy intensity stuff out of there, and focused more on long-term wellness and mobility and stretching and all those things, and sustainable weight loss practices, for a simple thing. Is like, we were thinking about how could you make it the rest of your life. You didn't need a distraction of crippling intensity to connect. You needed to connect with yourself by feeling like you left the gym energized, by feeling like you connected to the people around you who were also feeling inspired, that didn't trash themselves and hurt themselves. We also were thinking about that, because like, if you were just doing practices that were going to hurt yourself, well, guess what? You weren't going to be able to continue to re-engage in the space that was going to help foster that internal growth. Now, I had no control, and still have no control of what another facility or another organization does and aspires to promote as their value structure. There's plenty of great places out there, don't get me wrong. But if one is wildly different, and we're going to use just a blanket example, I'm not picking anybody out of the crowd here. Say one person came to our space, now that you know what our core values were, or at least some of the things that we held dear and what we were looking to promote. And maybe you go to another place where it's just all about the shine. I'm just trying to like selfie it up and do the fishy face thing in the mirrors, or whatever all that stuff is, where it's just like looking to be just purely a social media flex. The undercurrent of those two environments are going to promote certain things. And on your weekdays, when you're looking for validation or to be inspired or having a moment, on your weakest moments, how's that going to tip your behavior? And in the beginning, it doesn't seem like a big deal, because it's not. In the beginning, it's not a big deal. But as you become more invested in that space, in that environment, in that energy, in that thought process, in that mindset, you buy in deeper. Anybody ever wants to look into cult stuff, like that's what it comes down to. It's a deeper buy-in. Look into marketing. That's what it is. You're buying in more to a concept. So by the time you show up with the product or the decision-making moment about engaging in a service, you're ready to say, here's my money. And the money is not money. It's the external representation of, I'm handing over my trust. I'm hitting the I believe button. And I'm turning it over to you now. I believe in this concept. I'm going to shift my identity in that direction. I'm going to attach to that. If you have two people, call it a husband and a wife, one chooses one chooses the other. To me, it's always just been a matter of time. You'd hear the tone, you'd see the energy, see the things shift. And then eventually something was going to happen. I'd seen it plenty of times. I've been in a few different gym environments. That was my space. Now, fundamentally, I think physical wellness, physical health is truly one of the most powerful representations and relationships that one must nurture within themselves. Fundamentally, I think that's a great place to start with all this stuff. And there's a lot of different ways you can do the whole fitness thing. I've just described a few of them. Here's what I've learned. And obviously all the things within Naked Sunday is part of what I talk about here. Slow, steady progress, small, consistent habits over time, proper dosing, meeting yourself where you're at, all that kind of stuff. If you're going to go to the immediate gratification crowd, you're going to see a lot of other things. Intensity. It's the same person who's just like throwing their life savings down every week at the lottery, hoping to just hit it big every single week, not willing to just do the small, consistent things over and over and over again. There's nothing I'm saying here that's magical. There's a million people out there, an infinite amount of successful people who have said the same thing I'm saying. This is just my vernacular, and perhaps it resonates wherever you're at in your life. But the same thing happens in your personal life. So the point I'm coming back to here is, as you're about to go on a transformational journey, and especially as you're looking at the end of your life, especially if you achieved a lot of success, at least externally, and you're now looking to pivot. I think of a lot of people who got they're starting to look at a few years away from becoming empty nesters, or they're looking at retirement in 5 to 10 years. Yeah, the mom bod and the dad bod kind of thing is also representation. There's not harmony. Are you going to go on that journey of taking care of yourself responsibly and ethically with your partner? Are you going to have a discussion about what the end destination looks like? Brings it right back to who's holding your hand on your deathbed. Is it your spouse? From the bottom of my heart, if you are married right now, I hope that is a resounding yes, not like a trepidation of yes. Now, if there is some hesitancy, where's the disconnect? Have you forgotten to touch base? Did you get distracted? Was there a deviation? That whole growing apart, the kids got in the way, the job got in the way, all that stuff. Yeah, they're all great excuses, but they're stuff. They were decisions to allow more stuff to get between you and this primary relationship, this primary connection. Now, if you're both feeling this way, cool, guess what? You can have a conversation. It's not too far gone. Every relationship has friction. It's whether or not you touch base and work towards getting back towards each other. It's not going to be just that Disney movie ending. We make this one decision, everything works out. It will take constant work to touch base, much like you have weekly staff meetings in your business to keep everybody on the same page. Are you doing that for your relationship? Not just we own a house together, we got to make sure the bills are paid. Are you doing it for your intimacy? Are you having consistent date nights where you talk about what inspires you? Where you talk about things you're preparing for, you're working towards, you're growing towards, how you're making more time and space and experiences for each other? Growing a life that you look forward to sharing with this human being? Are you practicing being vulnerable with them routinely? Not just that early honeymoon phase where everything is new and it's, touch me here, touch me there. Oh yeah, it feels so good. That's a lot of the external. And it's that first getting to know you stage. You're peeling back the first layer on the onion there. And it goes deep. And it's it's potential that it just is infinitely deep. The human experience, how far do you know where it goes? You're going to experience more and have new context to be able to evaluate as you grow. Share that. Share that. If you don't be surprised if somebody else who's willing to share and hold space and be inspired by the direction your other half wants to go gets more attention. Now, I'm not making some case for just have divorces. In fact, my dearest hope in my initiative in all of this, which I have somewhat quietly started to talk about, is that my hope is that I can help the world create strong, resilient, resounding, lovable. There's Tyson getting really excited about it. Profoundly deep. Tyson, come here, buddy. Hey, Tyson, come here. Look at that. Distractions. Things getting in the way of communicating a message. Not growing together. Imagine that. Come here, Ty. These are the things that I'm hoping to do to help people build. Tyson, it's enough now. Come here. If you want a treat, you got to come to daddy. But we just keep going, man. See where I'm going? Like, I'm going to keep growing with them. Hopefully that was just a live example of growing together. Back to what I was saying. My hope within all of this stuff, to make myself perfectly clear, there's a time and place for divorces. Stuff happens. You learn, things go on. But my hope, by starting with helping people build these deep, resoundingly powerful relationships, is that we can start modeling and showing people that you can start preparing that before you even get into a dating situation. What if we started eventually all the way back? Like, how do we build people to have an empowered relationship within themselves? Because when you show up as a singularly empowered, fulfilled, whole human being, and you arrive at a space with another person who is mirroring that same fulfillment and growth and that same unified values of structures and all that, when you combine that together, then you can start to create a life that's really empowering, and it can produce things like offspring that can be representations of that, and you continue to grow, and it creates these new variables that you grow with. I don't know, man. Maybe that's how we change the world. That's my simple hope. Perhaps there's a lot more peace in that, with strong, beautiful, loving relationships. However that plays out, I'm not stuck on the dogmas of right, wrong, whatever the external variables. So the PC stuff, whatever that needs to be. I don't care. I want people to feel love and be loved for who they truly are. But the only way to be that way is to show up whole and complete and fulfilled within yourself and understand who you are, and to meet that other person and support them as well, to challenge them, to hold space for them, and to routinely do that. And you just keep doing that until you die, until death do you part. It's the most common that, I mean, I think almost everybody could recite that line. That's how you do it. You just keep showing up for the thing that you need to be showing up for. And it's not to just pay the bills, though that needs to be done. That's the don't die piece of all this stuff, but to thrive, to truly be inspired by that person holding your hand on your deathbed. You must grow together and keep growing together. And that love will look different as time goes on. I love my wife in different ways now than when we first got married. Ironically, it almost flipped on its head why I loved her. And I love her for both things, but that's the cool part. You can grow and love each other more on the day you die than the day you got married, than the day you met. But that takes work. And the outside is going to look different. But the inside, that's going to look more beautiful, sound more beautiful, feel more loving and embracing and kind and welcoming and understanding and inspiring as you grow, as you nourish each other's path to a higher self-concept of perhaps the ideal self. So hopefully this gives you all some insight as to why I choose to work with And I'm inspired to work with couples in the whole Empowered Couple Project, where we take a look at all the things, because it can't just be one thing. We're going to take a look at your health. We're going to take a look at your work, what that means, your connection to yourself. And by health, I mean not just the physical, but like mentally, emotionally, spiritually. What is your connection to your relationships? How are you communicating? When it comes to wealth, it's like, what are you doing with your time? Because time is the most valuable thing we possess, because it's, I mean, we are 1 second poorer right now than we were a second ago because we shared this one moment. It's now thinking about how we're going to be sharing those moments, how we're going to be sharing that time with those that we choose to share it with. We need to take a bigger picture look at all that stuff, because to grow together, we have to. And because I want to make sure that that relationship has every last chance to be successful all the way to the, I won't say bitter end, perhaps bittersweet end, because it's the end of a chapter and it leaves a lesson and a legacy that can be quite profound. So there, my friends, there you have it. We had a little intermission. We had a little vociferous moment from my puppers, making his presence ever known. I love that little sucker. He's so cute. My challenge to you is to look at your significant other today and ask yourself how you're going to be growing together. Where are you going? What does that destination look like? Why do you want to go in that direction? How do you want to get there? And share a conversation. Share a conversation with them. They're in the car with you. And remember, they can't read your mind. Just because you've been together for a long time, and sometimes there's those serendipitous moments where it's like, I kind of see what you're saying with just that look. But on higher level concepts, on deeper feelings that we're discussing right now, how can somebody know? That would be ludicrous to expect somebody to just look inside of your skull, inside of your brain, inside of your consciousness, inside of your heart, and say, like, I understand everything, because they got their own stuff. They got their own world they're working through. Connect with them, make time for it, carve out some space, make sure they feel important, because by making time for them, they know you, that this is important. They know that they're important enough to share it with. It's why going on a date, setting an appointment means so much. Carved out time in my schedule for you. I made it a priority. Just some food for thought. Consider how you're making growth together a priority. Not, oh, we'll get to it when we get to it. No, you won't. And one of you might get growing in a different direction sooner. And that's, well, you already heard my thoughts on that. So, my friends, beautiful humans, students of love, thank you for joining me on this little escapade. Really appreciate you for sharing this time with me. Perhaps we just got to grow together. I'd like to think we did. If you have any more thoughts, if you need any more support, if you're looking to go on and change together, you know where to find me. All you got to do is ask. All you do is got to reach out. But I hope this reflection finds you in love and peace and happiness. Until next time, remember, love everybody.